London, November, 1892. The fog rolled in thick and low, swallowing the gaslit streets in a damp yellow haze. It muffled footsteps, dulled voices, and gave the city the eerie quiet of a cathedral after dark. Chimneys coughed out smoke like old men clearing their throats, and horses' hooves clattered faintly in the distance, half swallowed by the mist. On Wren Street, the lamps flickered. One by one they steadied, pale flames dancing in the glass bowls like nervous sentinels. But the lamp outside number 43 trembled once and went out. At precisely that moment, a scream ripped through the stillness. A woman's scream, sharp and panicked, then cut short as if a hand had clamped over her mouth. Clara Whitlock paused just outside the apothecary, a brown parcel of fever powder tucked beneath her arm. Her breath fogged before her lips as she turned toward the sound. Most would freeze or flee, but not Clara. She moved, quick and deliberate, toward the alley that curled behind the shuttered bakery. As she turned the corner, the gaslight's extinguished bulb left a pool of darkness, but her eyes had adjusted quickly to the gloom. She saw the figure lying crumpled by the fence, a man, flat on his back, one arm outstretched like a marionette discarded mid-performance. His hat had rolled into the gutter. Blood pooled beneath his head, dark as oil in the half-light. Clara crouched beside him, careful not to touch anything. He was impeccably dressed, velvet collar, pearl stickpin, gold watch chain glinting faintly. His eyes stared upward, glassy and wide. There was no mistaking it. He was dead. But what caught Clara's attention most wasn't the blood. It was the object clutched tightly in the man's right hand, a torn scrap of blue satin, frayed at the edge like the lining of a woman's glove. She glanced up toward the street. No one else had arrived yet. Just her, the fog, and the corpse beneath the gaslight. A whisper of wind stirred the hem of her coat. She looked once more at the man's face. Whoever he was, someone had gone to great lengths to silence him in the dark. And Clara Whitlock, widow, reader of penny novels, and reluctant witness, had just walked into a murder. By the time Inspector Alistair Finch arrived, the street had stirred into uneasy wakefulness. The fog still clung to the stones, but now it danced around a growing crowd, maids in nightgowns peering from upper windows, shopkeepers stepping into the street, a constable keeping curious onlookers at bay. Clara stood to the side, arms folded, watching as Finch knelt beside the body. He was tall, clean-shaven, and perpetually disheveled, more like a weary schoolmaster than a man of the law. His overcoat was buttoned crookedly, his gloves mismatched, but his eyes, a piercing gray, missed nothing. Clara had met him before. 3 times, in fact, twice over incidents that had ended in scandal, and once involving a poisoned pie at the parish picnic. He hadn't forgotten her. "You again?" he said flatly, glancing up from the corpse. Clara smiled faintly. "Good morning, Inspector. We really must stop meeting like this." Finch sighed, brushing a hand through his hair. "You have an uncanny ability to find dead men before breakfast. I assure you, I was only here for quinine and camphor," she said, lifting her parcel in proof. He turned back to the body, studying the victim's face, then the blood splatter, then the piece of satin still clenched in his hand. "Don't suppose you touched anything?" "I know better by now," Clara said, "but you'll want to take note of that fabric." Finch gently pried open the stiffening fingers. The satin scrap gleamed faintly, a rich royal blue with hand-stitched lining and a faint perfume that lingered even in the cold. Expensive. Feminine. "A lady's glove," Finch muttered. "Or what's left of it." "Could be torn in a struggle," Clara offered. "He might have grabbed her hand before he fell, or she left it to mislead." He looked at her sharply. "You're not on this case, Mrs. Whitlock. I never said I was, but it does appear you have a woman to find. Leave that to the professionals." Clara inclined her head. Of course. But even as she turned to leave, her thoughts were already working. The man, middle-aged, clean-shaven, well-tailored, was no common drunk or vagrant. Someone had planned this. The extinguished gaslight wasn't a coincidence. It was cover. She glanced once more at the broken lamp above them, then down at the satin fragment in the inspector's hand. Secrets, she knew, always found a way to surface, and sometimes they began beneath a flickering streetlight in the fog. Later that morning, Clara Whitlock stood outside a narrow storefront, nestled between a tobacconist and a clockmaker on Parchment Lane. The gold-lettered sign above the door read, "Maison Laveau, fine dressmaking and discretion insured." Gaslight from within softened the window display. Lace-trimmed bodices, silken gloves, and feathers that caught the light like flame. The shop was quiet, but not asleep. Clara entered to the chime of a tiny bell. Madame Laveau, always draped in lavender and shadow, appeared from the back as if summoned by scent. She was small and angular, with hair wound into a precise coil and eyes that missed nothing. "Mrs. Whitlock," she said smoothly, "I trust the morning gowns held up?" "Impeccably," Clara replied, "but I'm here on a different sort of errand." She removed the folded scrap of blue satin from her handbag, a small square, perfectly legal to possess, but dangerous to inquire about. Clara hadn't taken it from the crime scene, of course. She'd asked Finch for a glimpse, then paid a constable's boy 2 shillings to sketch the texture and color. The fabric she'd brought now was a perfect match from a bolt sold by a rival seamstress. It was bait. "I'm searching for gloves made from this material," Clara said, setting it delicately on the counter. "Commissioned recently, possibly bespoke." Madame Laveau eyed it with something between interest and distaste. "I recognize the satin. Only one pair made in that shade last month. My supplier calls it Imperial Blue. Awful name, but it sells." Clara tilted her head. "And the client?" A long pause. Then, "Lady Adeline Gray." That name landed like a pin dropped into silence. Clara knew it well, an icy beauty, politically connected and often whispered about in private circles. The wife of Lord Edwin Gray, Member of Parliament. Her appearances were as calculated as her absences. "She paid in full," Laveau continued. "Silk-lined gloves with a mother-of-pearl clasp. No one else would order that color. Too bold, too scandalous. It suited her." "Did she mention a function? A ball, perhaps?" "No," Madame Laveau said, eyes narrowing slightly. But she was tense, hands shaking as she tried them on. Her maid waited outside, refused to come in. That's always a sign. Clara tucked the information away. A woman in high society, appearing nervous, ordering something as audacious as sapphire blue gloves, then making sure no one saw her do it? Yes, Lady Gray had secrets, and if Charles Etheridge, the dead man, had known one of them, it might have been the last thing he ever learned. Clara stood, smoothing her skirt. "Thank you, madame. As always, your discretion is a marvel." The dressmaker's lips curled slightly. "We live by what we never say, Mrs. Whitlock." Outside, the fog had lifted somewhat, revealing streaks of blue sky behind grimy rooftops. Clara walked briskly, the pieces arranging themselves in her mind. Lady Gray had motive, perhaps jealousy, perhaps fear. She had access, and now Clara had a thread to follow. One glove missing, one secret unraveling, and Clara was not yet ready to let it drop. The Grays' townhouse on Belgrave Square stood with the poised grandeur of old money, its stone facade stern, its brass fixtures gleaming even under the ashen London sky. It was the sort of home where secrets didn't go to die, only to rest, quietly. Clara Whitlock approached with the air of a woman paying a polite social call. In her gloved hands, she held a copy of Ivanhoe, the pretense for her visit. It had, in truth, been borrowed months ago by Lady Grey at a charity reading and never returned. Clara suspected the book had never been read. The butler who opened the door recognized her. "Mrs. Whitlock," he said, only mildly surprised. "I believe her ladyship is expecting me," Clara said smoothly, not waiting for confirmation. She was shown into a sitting room with cream-colored wallpaper and a view of the park. Lady Adeline Grey entered moments later, dressed impeccably in a dove-gray morning gown, her blonde hair swept into a chignon so tight it looked sculpted. She greeted Clara with a cold civility. "Mrs. Whitlock," she said, "how kind of you to return the book." "It seemed appropriate," Clara said, rising. "A tale of honor and betrayal. Timely, I thought." Lady Grey offered no reaction. Clara, always watchful, noticed two things at once: a slight tremor in the woman's hands as she poured tea, and a thin bandage at her wrist, half concealed beneath a lace cuff. "I hope you're not injured," Clara said too casually. "Oh," Lady Grey said, pausing. "A scratch. Broken vase." Clara sipped her tea, watching the other woman's face. "Such a vibrant color, that blue. The gloves you ordered from Madame Laveau, they must have been stunning." Adeline's eyes flicked up, startled. "You've spoken to her?" "Briefly. She mentioned you were her only client to request satin in that particular shade. Imperial blue, was it?" A long pause. Then, Lady Grey set her teacup down, carefully, with both hands. "They were a gift," she said quietly, "for someone I cared for. Charles Etheridge?" The name broke the air like glass. Lady Grey didn't respond immediately. She looked down at her hands. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt," she whispered. "You quarreled with him?" "He threatened to make everything public," she said. "He was arrogant. He thought he could use me to manipulate my husband's position in Parliament. He wanted influence. I don't even know anymore." Clara kept her voice gentle. "Where were you last night at 7 o'clock? A pause. "Home. Alone. My maid was out." "Not entirely true," Clara said softly. "Your maid saw you return just after 7, flushed, disheveled. You claimed you never left." Lady Grey's composure cracked for just a moment. "I went to meet him, just to talk. I left before anything happened." Clara stood. The gaslight outside number 43 was extinguished. Deliberately, I think. Someone wanted the street dark when he died. The woman's voice trembled. "You think I did it?" "I think someone wants me to think you did." Clara walked to the door. "If you're being framed, Lady Grey, you'd best decide whether your silence is protection or a noose." She stepped back into the hallway, her mind racing. Something about the bandage, the timing, the discarded glove, it all felt too neat, too convenient. Outside, a carriage rumbled past, its wheels splashing muddy water across the stones. Someone had made sure that when the gaslight went out, Charles Etheridge would die in the dark. Whether it was love, politics, or blackmail behind it, Clara Whitlock intended to drag the truth into the light. Night fell early in London, swallowing the rooftops in soot-colored dark. The gaslights hissed to life, one by one, but Wren Street's lamp, number 43, remained broken, still black, still waiting. Clara returned there, alone. Her boots clicked softly on wet cobblestones as she retraced the route from the bakery's back alley to the wrought iron fence where Charles Etheridge had died. She paused beneath the dead lamp, peering upward. Its glass casing was clean, no signs of soot or damage. It hadn't failed from wear. It had been silenced. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of brick and coal. She knelt near the fence, scanning the cracks between stones. Something caught her eye, a faint smear of oil near the base of the lamppost. Unnatural. Machine oil. She straightened and heard it. A footstep, not behind her, to the side, fast, soft, then still. Clara froze. Her heart beat once, twice, then harder. She turned, but the alley was empty, or it seemed so. Then a voice, low and hoarse, came from the dark. "Should have left it alone, widow." A man stepped into the faint circle of light cast by a distant lamp. His coat was dark, collar high. A scar ran down his right cheek like a tear carved into stone. His hands were thick, mechanic's hands, stained and nicked. "I saw you at the gasworks," Clara said, schooling her voice. "You're Greeley, aren't you? You had access to the street valves." He smirked. "Smart woman. Smart gets people killed." Clara kept her distance, fingers inching toward the hat pin tucked into her coat. "Did you shut off the lamp for Lord Grey?" Greeley's eyes narrowed. "I don't work for politicians." "No," Clara said. "You work for whoever pays enough." He wanted the street dark, so no one would see Etheridge fall. He deserved it. They all do. "What did he have on you?" "Nothing," Greeley snapped, too quickly. "But people like him always think they're safe." He stepped closer. Clara stepped back. "Careful," she said quietly. "There's an inspector who knows I'm here. If I don't return, they'll come looking." With questions. That gave him pause, his jaw clenched. "Then you'd better be quick. You saw nothing. Say nothing. Or next time, you won't hear the footsteps before it's too late." With that, he melted back into the shadows. Clara stood frozen, the cold pressing in on her. Her breath shivered in the air. She had what she needed, confirmation of sabotage. Proof the gaslight had been shut off, not by coincidence, but by design, and Greeley had been paid to do it. But who was paying him? Lord Grey still fit, jealous, calculating, desperate to maintain his career. But there was something else, something Greeley wasn't saying. Clara sensed it like a draft in a sealed room. Something more dangerous was brewing behind all of this. She pulled her coat tighter and walked away, the dark pressing at her back like a silent hand. By the next morning, the sun had returned to London as a pale, uninterested observer. Clara Whitlock found herself far from Kensington's tidy streets, descending a narrow iron staircase into the belly of the city, the Southwark Municipal Gas Works. The smell hit first, sulfur, damp coal dust, rusting metal. Down here, men worked in near-constant dimness, surrounded by roaring furnaces, hissing valves and thick iron pipes that spidered across the walls like arteries of the beast. It was a place most respectable women never saw. Clara felt perfectly at home. She approached the night foreman's office, a boxy structure bolted beside the main pressure hall. A sleepy, soot-streaked man in a vest looked up as she knocked. "Name's Webb," he grunted. "What's your business?" Clara handed him a folded note. It bore Finch's seal and a scrawled authorization. Finch hadn't wanted her down here, but after last night's encounter with Greeley, she'd made herself very persuasive. "I'm following up on a service irregularity," she said calmly. "Wren Street, lamp failure, night of the 14th. Webb scratched his stubbled chin. "Yeah, that's in the log." He thumbed through a thick, smudged ledger and jabbed a grease-stained finger at the entry. 14th November, 6:42 p.m. Adjust. Valve 12. E. Streetlight number. 43 manually shut. Logged. Greeley. No cause reported. Unusual? Clara asked. Webb frowned. We don't shut lamps manually unless there's a gas leak or repair. No leak reported. Valve was in fine order next day. Means it was shut for effect. For effect, Clara repeated. And someone approved it? Not through me, Webb said. But Greeley didn't need much oversight. Been here 6 years. Knows the system better than I do. Could he be bribed? Webb gave her a long look. Ma'am, for the right coin, half this city would look the other way. Clara let that settle. She stepped outside the office and into the mechanical murmur of the gasworks. Pipes vibrated faintly under her boots. The lamp hadn't failed. It had been sabotaged at the precise moment Etheridge died. Greeley was involved, yes, but she still couldn't see why. If it had been only revenge or jealousy, it would have been messy, desperate. This wasn't messy. This was clinical, designed. She turned to leave and froze. Across the catwalk above, a shadow moved, too quick to be a worker, too quiet, watching. Her breath caught, but the figure was gone before she could call out. Vanished behind a stack of coal bins. She made her way swiftly back up the stairs and onto the street. Something was pressing down on this case. On her. A force deeper than heartbreak or politics. This wasn't just about Etheridge. This was about control. Clara Whitlock straightened her collar and stepped out into the wind, more certain than ever. Someone in power was pulling the strings, and they weren't finished yet. That evening, Clara Whitlock arrived at Parliament Square wearing a borrowed hat and an expression of polite innocence. Her destination was not the great chambers themselves, but a smaller office tucked behind a side hall, furnished in polished mahogany and restraint. Lord Edwin Grey was a man who valued order above all else. She had written him earlier that day, "My visit is regarding your wife. I thought it best you heard from a friend before the police come knocking." A lie, but an effective one. Lord Grey greeted her with a cool nod. "Mrs. Whitlock, I trust this isn't some attempt at extortion." Clara smiled thinly. "Not at all. I'm simply trying to prevent your wife from being hanged for a murder she didn't commit." He blinked, just once. Then he gestured to a leather chair. "I'm listening." Clara sat. "You're aware, I assume, that Charles Etheridge was found dead beneath a darkened gaslight, that the only evidence points to a woman's glove, your wife's, conveniently torn." Gray's face remained still, but his knuckles whitened as he folded his hands. "She told me she went to meet him, yes," he said. "That she left before anything happened." "Did she?" Clara leaned forward. "Or did you follow her? Did you wait until she left, then paid a man like Greeley to shut off the lamp and make sure Etheridge never spoke again?" Lord Gray's mouth curled slightly. "Careful, Mrs. Whitlock. You're accusing a peer of the realm." "I'm not accusing," Clara said smoothly. "I'm baiting." There was a knock. The door opened and Inspector Finch stepped in, unannounced and uninvited. "Evening, Lord Gray," Finch said, removing his hat. "I've just come from Southwark Gasworks. Seems your name came up during a bribery inquiry." Gray's eyes flashed, but his voice was calm. "I've no dealings with common laborers." "Odd," Finch replied, producing a small ledger. "Because Greeley had a payment marked from E.G. the day before Etheridge's death, and before you deny it, his confession was rather thorough." Lord Gray stood abruptly. "This is absurd. A mechanical failure and a mistress scorned. Hardly a conspiracy." "You didn't kill Etheridge out of jealousy," Clara said softly. "You killed him because he was about to expose you." She stood, pacing slowly. "Etheridge was laundering money through foreign investors. You helped him draft legislation to cover the transactions. Then he turned greedy, threatened to implicate you unless you made him a permanent partner." Gray's face twitched. You have no proof. But your wife's gloves, the bribe to Greeley, and the gas valve records paint a rather damning portrait, Finch said. And, Clara added, your wife knows everything. She's ready to testify. That was a lie, of course. Lady Grey had said nothing of the sort, but Clara gambled on one thing. Guilt and pride don't coexist for long. Grey sank slowly back into his chair, the weight of his undoing finally visible in his posture. Etheridge was a threat to the government, he said quietly. To stability. To my future. To your power, Clara corrected. And now that future's gone dark. That night, as Lord Grey was taken into custody and Greeley signed a full statement in exchange for leniency, Clara sat beside the fire in her flat, sipping tea and staring into the flames. Another man dead. Another woman almost destroyed to protect a man's ambition. But not this time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next one. Bye for now.